Part 1. The council chamber was quiet. Too quiet. Chancellor Vexthar stood at the center of the great hall, his scales reflecting the blue light from the windows. Outside, stars moved slowly across the darkness of space. Nexus Prime Station orbited a binary star system at the edge of known space. This was the heart of galactic civilization. This was where 800 species came together to make decisions. Today, the chamber felt empty. 3 years ago, the council voted to expel humanity. 847 members voted yes. Only one voted no. That one vote came from Ambassador Hyunwoo, the human representative. He cast his vote, gathered his papers, and left the chamber without speaking. Nobody had heard from Earth since that day. Vexthar remembered that day clearly. He remembered the reasons given for the expulsion. Humans were too aggressive. They expanded their territory too fast. They built too many weapons. They did not fit with the peaceful values of the council. The vote seemed right at the time. Now staring at the flashing red alert on his console, Vexthar wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. The alert came from the outer rim, the far edge of council space, the place where human colonies used to be. The council had taken those colonies after the expulsion, claiming the territory as abandoned. They sent administrators. They sent colonists. They sent traitors. None of them came back. The alert message was simple and terrifying. It came from an automated beacon, the kind left behind to warn of danger. The message said one word, repeated over and over: Devourer. Vexthar called his military advisors. They arrived quickly, their faces showing confusion and fear. Admiral Korvan, a tall insectoid from the hive worlds, pulled up the data on the main display. The Devourer swarm, Korvan said quietly. I have only heard stories. Old stories. Stories that my grandfather told me when I was young. Are the stories true? Vexthar asked. Korvan was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes, the archives confirm it. The Devourer swarm appears every few thousand years. It consumes everything in its path, planets, ships, stations, everything becomes fuel for the swarm. How do we stop it? Another advisor asked. Korvan looked uncomfortable. The archives say that ancient civilizations built defensive networks. They stationed warships at the outer rim. They maintained constant patrols. They fought the swarm whenever it appeared, keeping it away from populated space. Vexthar felt his blood turn cold. Who maintained these defenses? Korvan met his eyes. In recent history? Humanity did. The room fell silent. Someone started to speak, then stopped. Everyone understood what this meant. For decades, maybe longer, humanity had been defending the outer rim. They built bases there. They sent patrols. They stationed warships in empty space far from their own worlds. The council always complained about human military expansion. Now they understood. The humans were not expanding. They were defending, and the council had forced them to stop. How long do we have? Vexthar asked. Korvan checked his console. The swarm is moving at 0.7 light speed. It is consuming 3 systems per week. At current speed, it will reach the first core worlds in 18 months. Prepare our fleets, Vexthar ordered. Korvan hesitated. Chancellor, our fleets are not ready for this kind of battle. We have 12 military fleets, yes, but they are ceremonial. We have not fought a real war in 200 years. Our tactics are outdated. Our weapons are designed for small conflicts, not for something like this. Then what do you suggest? Vexthar demanded. Korvan said nothing. He did not need to. Everyone in the room knew the answer. They needed humanity. On Earth, in an orbital defense station high above the planet, Science Officer Da-Un watched the same data. She had been tracking the swarm for weeks. Long-range sensors picked up the energy signatures. The pattern was familiar. She had seen it before in old military records. Da-Un walked to the command center and showed the data to Admiral Bora. The Admiral studied the display for a long time. Finally, she spoke. They will ask for our help. Yes, Da-Un agreed. What should we tell them? Bora asked. Da-Un smiled without humor. That depends on what Ambassador Hyunwoo decides. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat in his office deep underground in what used to be Seoul. The city above was quiet now. Most humans had moved to other planets, spreading across the Sol system. Earth was home, but it was also a fortress. Nobody invaded Earth. Nobody threatened Sol system. Humanity made sure of that. A message appeared on his console. It came through unofficial channels carried by a merchant captain named Ji-Ho. The message was short. The Council wanted to talk. They wanted Earth to send a representative to Nexus Prime. They needed help. Yunwu read the message 3 times. Then he deleted it. Days passed. The Council sent more messages, each one more desperate than the last. Jiho brought them all to Earth, landing his small trading ship in the empty docking bays that once served galactic commerce. Now those bays sat silent, unused. Finally, Hyunwoo sent a reply. It went through the same unofficial channels. Jiho carried it back to Nexus Prime, hidden in his ship's data core. The message contained only one word. No. When Vexthar received the message, he stood alone in his private chamber, staring at the screen. One word, such a small word, such a powerful word. The Council held an emergency session. The debate lasted for hours. Some members said humanity was being petty. Others said humanity had every right to refuse. A few said they should send warships to Earth and force compliance. That last suggestion made Vexthar laugh. It was a bitter laugh. Send warships to Earth? The same Earth that had defended the entire Outer Rim for decades? The same Earth that built weapons the Council did not understand? The same Earth that went completely silent 3 years ago, with no explanation of what they had been doing during that silence? No, attacking Earth would be suicide. Counselor Mireille, a young member from the Harmony Collective, stood to speak. She was one of the few who voted against humanity's expulsion. Her voice was steady and clear. "We need to apologize," she said. "Not with words. With actions. We need to admit we were wrong. We need to show humanity that we understand what they did for us, what they sacrificed. Only then might they consider helping us." The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some members refused to apologize. Others said Mireille was right. Vexthar listened to all of them. Then he made his decision. "I will go to Earth myself," he announced. "I will take full responsibility for the expulsion. I will apologize in person. If they refuse to help after that, then we will face the swarm alone." The vote passed. Vexthar would lead a delegation to Sol system. They would arrive at the edge of human space and request permission to enter. They would wait as long as necessary. The delegation's ship arrived at the Sol system boundary 3 days later. They broadcast their message on all frequencies. They explained the situation. They asked for a meeting. They apologized. Then they waited. On Earth, Hyunwoo read the message. Admiral Bora stood beside him, waiting for orders. Daeun monitored the swarm's approach. The entire command staff was present. "How long until the swarm reaches council space?" Hyunwoo asked. 17 months, Daeun replied. "How long until it reaches Sol system?" he asked. "If it consumes all of council space first, approximately 36 months after that, maybe longer." Hyunwoo was silent for a long time. Then he gave his orders. "Send a reply. Tell them we will consider their request. They may wait at the boundary. We will contact them when we are ready." "How long should we make them wait?" Bora asked. Hyunwoo smiled slightly. 72 hours. Let them feel what 3 years of silence is like." The message was sent. On the delegation ship, Vexthar received it and understood. Humanity was not refusing, but they were also not forgiving, not yet. They wanted the council to understand the weight of what they had done. They wanted the council to wait, to wonder, to fear. And in that waiting, the council finally began to understand what they had lost when they expelled humanity. 72 hours felt like 72 days. Vexthar paced the bridge of his delegation ship, watching the stars of Sol system through the windows. Earth was out there somewhere, blue and green and alive. But it might as well have been a fortress. Humanity was not answering. His communications officer kept checking the systems. "Still no response, Chancellor?" Vexthar nodded. He expected this. Humanity had been silent for 3 years. They were good at silence. The Council was not. Already messages flooded in from Nexus Prime. Council members demanded updates. They wanted to know if Earth agreed to help. They asked why the negotiations were taking so long. Vexthar ignored them all. Meanwhile, back at Nexus Prime, the situation grew worse. The Council military sent 3 fleets to engage the Devourer swarm. They wanted to prove they could handle the threat without human help. They wanted to show strength. It was a disaster. The swarm adapted instantly to Council weapons. Energy shields that were supposed to stop anything simply absorbed the attacks and made the swarm stronger. Council ships tried to retreat, but the swarm was faster. Of 300 ships, only 47 escaped. Admiral Korvan sent the battle recordings to Vexthar. The Chancellor watched them in his quarters alone. The recordings showed everything. Council ships firing uselessly at the swarm moving like a living thing, surrounding and consuming each vessel, screams on the communication channels. Then silence. Vexthar studied the tactics. Or rather, the lack of tactics. The Council ships fought in formation, just like the training manuals taught. They maintained proper spacing. They followed protocol. They did everything right according to 200 years of military doctrine. And they died. He pulled up old records of human military operations, the ones the Council used to complain about. Human ships never fought in neat formations. They scattered. They attacked from multiple angles. They adapted constantly, changing tactics every few minutes. The Council always said this showed poor discipline. Now Vexthar understood. It showed survival instinct. The 72 hours finally ended. A message arrived from Earth. It was not from Hyunwoo. It came from Admiral Bora herself. The message was brief and direct. Earth would agree to meet, but not on Earth, not on Nexus Prime. The meeting would happen at New Sol Colony. Vexthar felt his stomach drop. New Sol was the first human colony outside Sol system. It was also the first colony the Council seized after the expulsion. The Council removed every human from that system and claimed it as their own. The symbolism was clear. If the Council wanted to negotiate, they would do it in the place where they committed their first crime against humanity. The journey to New Sol took 6 days. Vexthar spent that time reviewing everything he knew about humanity. Their history, their culture, their wars. He had never paid much attention before. Humans were just another species, he thought. One among 800. Now he realized how little he understood. Humans fought each other for thousands of years before they reached space. They built weapons that could destroy their own planet. They created and survived multiple near-extinction events. They learned to cooperate through necessity, not through natural, peaceful inclination. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that peace required strength to maintain. The Council was built on different principles. Peace came first. Cooperation came naturally. Strength was suspicious, something to be controlled and limited. For 200 years this worked. The Council lived in harmony, but it only worked because humanity stood guard at the edges, fighting threats the Council never saw. The delegation ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of New Sol system. Vexthar looked at the sensor display. Then he looked again, not believing what he saw. Ships, hundreds of ships. Human warships surrounded the delegation vessel, appearing from nowhere as their stealth systems deactivated. Each ship was massive, covered in weapons built for war. These were not the exploration vessels humanity used to send to Council space. These were purpose-built combat ships, designed with only one goal in mind: destruction. The communications officer looked terrified. "Chancellor, they are targeting us." "I know," Vexthar said quietly. "Stand down. Show no hostile intent," a voice came over the speakers. Admiral Bora spoke with calm authority. "Council delegation, you are cleared to approach New Sol Station. Follow the designated flight path. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. Do you understand?" Vexthar activated his microphone. "We understand, Admiral. We will comply." The flight path took them through the human fleet. Vexthar counted the ships as they passed. 347 warships, each one more advanced than anything in Council arsenals. His sensor officer tried to scan them, but human jamming systems blocked everything. They could only see what the humans wanted them to see. One of the junior diplomats whispered, "Where did these ships come from?" "We had no intelligence about a fleet this size." Vexthar understood. "They built them." During the 3 years of silence, while we thought humanity was sulking in isolation, they were preparing for war. "War with us?" the diplomat asked, fear in his voice. "Perhaps," Vexthar admitted. "Or war with the next threat, or both. Humanity always prepares for the worst." New Sol Station appeared ahead. The delegation had expected ruins. The Council removed humans from this colony 3 years ago. They thought the infrastructure would be abandoned, slowly decaying in empty space. Instead, they found a military fortress. The station was enormous, 10 times larger than it had been before the expulsion. Shipyards surrounded it, filled with vessels under construction. Defense platforms bristled with weapons. Everything was clean, efficient and terrifyingly functional. Humanity never abandoned New Sol. They evacuated the civilians and converted everything into a war machine. The delegation docked. Armed human soldiers waited for them, not pointing weapons but making their presence clear. Vexthar and his team followed a guide through the station corridors. Everything was stark and gray. No art, no decoration, just function. They entered a large conference room. One side was all windows showing the human fleet outside. The other side held a long table. At the head of that table sat Ambassador Hyunwoo. He had aged in 3 years. His hair showed gray now. Lines marked his face. But his eyes were sharp and hard. These were not the eyes of the diplomatic ambassador who left Nexus Prime quietly. These were the eyes of someone who had spent 3 years preparing for the galaxy's judgment. Chancellor Vexthar, Hyunwoo said. His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. Please sit, the council delegation sat. Vexthar noticed that Admiral Bo-Ra stood beside Hyunwoo, along with several other humans in military uniforms. Scientists, engineers, military commanders. This was not a diplomatic meeting. This was a war council, and the council was invited as observers. You came here to ask for help, Hyunwoo began. Before we discuss that, let me show you something. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared above the table. Battle recordings, not from the recent council defeat, but from years ago. Vexthar watched as human ships fought creatures he did not recognize. Massive alien vessels.
Swarms of automated weapons.
Strange energy beings that consumed starlight. 15 major threats in the last century, Hyunwoo said quietly. 15 times that humanity intercepted and neutralized dangers before they reached council space. You never knew about any of them. We made sure of that. We did not want to frighten you. We thought we were protecting you. The recordings continued. Human ships taking damage. Human soldiers dying. Human colonies sacrificed to stop threats from spreading. And through it all, silence. The council never heard about these battles. They happened at the edges in the dark spaces between stars. We were wrong, Hyunwoo continued. We should have told you. We should have made you understand what we were doing. But we were arrogant. We thought we could handle everything ourselves. We thought you would see our actions and understand. He stopped the display and looked directly at Vexthar. Instead, you saw aggression. You saw expansion. You saw a species that did not fit your peaceful ideals. And you expelled us. Vexthar felt shame burn through him. We made a mistake. Yes, Hyunwoo agreed. You did. And now the Devourer Swarm is coming, number 16 on our list of major threats. Except this time we are not standing guard. This time the council faces the threat alone. Will you help us? Vexthar asked directly. Hyunwoo was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. That depends on whether you are willing to accept our terms. He pulled up a document. Terms of cooperation. Vexthar read through them quickly. Full restoration of human territories. Equal representation on the council. An independent human defense network that answered to no one but Earth. And a public apology. The last term was the hardest. The council would have to broadcast an apology to every human who suffered under the expulsion. They would have to admit they were wrong. Publicly. Completely. Vexthar looked up at Hyunwoo. Some council members will refuse these terms. Then they will die when the swarm arrives, Hyunwoo said simply. These are our terms. Accept them or face extinction. There is no third option. Outside the windows, the human fleet waited silently. 347 ships, each one a reminder that humanity could destroy the council if they chose. But they were not offering. Vexthar returned to Nexus Prime carrying humanity's terms. The document felt heavy in his hands, though it weighed nothing. Words on a screen. Terms that would save billions of lives. Terms that would also destroy the council's pride. The council chamber filled quickly when he called for an emergency session. All 800 members attended. They knew the situation was desperate. More reports arrived daily about the Devourer Swarm's advance. Another system consumed. Another colony fleet destroyed. The swarm was now only 14 months away from core council worlds. Vexthar presented the terms. He read each one aloud, his voice steady. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. Then the arguments began. This is extortion, one counselor shouted. They are using our fear to gain power. They are offering to save us, Mireille countered. After we expelled them, after we took their colonies, they could let us die. Instead, they offer help. At what cost? Another member demanded. We lose our authority. We admit we were wrong. We give them independence to do whatever they want. Vexthar stood. The chamber quieted. I saw their fleet. 347 warships, each one more powerful than anything we have. They built these ships during their silence. While we debated and celebrated our peaceful civilization, they prepared for war. He activated the holographic display. Let me show you what humanity has been doing for us. The recordings played. 15 major battles, 15 threats that the Council never knew existed. Human ships fighting and dying in the darkness between stars. Each battle showed the same pattern. Humanity detected a threat. Humanity engaged it. Humanity stopped it before it reached populated space. The Council watched in silence. Some members looked shocked. Others looked ashamed. A few looked angry, though whether at humanity or at themselves, Vexthar could not tell. We called them aggressive, Vexthar said quietly. We said they expanded too quickly. We criticized their military buildup. Now we know the truth. They were not expanding. They were defending, and we punished them for it. The debate continued for hours. Some members refused to accept the terms. They proposed alternatives. Send ambassadors to negotiate better terms. Offer payment instead of territory. Promise future cooperation without admitting past mistakes. Mireille stood and spoke with quiet force. We have no leverage, she said. We have nothing to bargain with. Our fleets cannot stop the swarm. Our weapons are useless. Our tactics are outdated. We are children playing at war and the adults are watching us fail. She turned to face the entire chamber. Humanity is giving us a gift. Not just survival, but a chance to become better. They could have ignored us. They could have let us die. They could have come here with those 300 ships and taken whatever they wanted by force. Instead, they offer partnership. Equal partnership. All we have to do is admit the truth. The truth that we were wrong? Someone asked bitterly. Yes, Mireille said simply. The truth that we were wrong. The vote was called. 643 members voted to accept the terms. 157 voted to reject them. It was enough. The Council would accept humanity's conditions, but then something unexpected happened. A group of 30 hardline councilors refused to accept the vote. They called it illegitimate. They said the Council was surrendering its sovereignty. They staged a walkout, taking their security forces with them. Within hours, the situation escalated. The hardliners seized control of several military stations. They declared themselves the true Council. They sent messages to member worlds asking for support. Some worlds responded positively. Others stayed loyal to the main Council. The Council was splitting apart, just when unity was most needed. Vexthar sent an urgent message to Earth. He explained the situation. He asked what humanity wanted the Council to do. The response came from Admiral Bora. This is your problem to solve, not ours. We offered you terms. You accepted them. What your rebels do is not our concern. We will deal with the swarm. You deal with your internal conflicts. The message was cold and final. Humanity would not help with the coup. They would not take sides in Council politics. They had their own mission. On Earth, the War Council met to finalize their strategy. Admiral Bora presented the fleet deployment plan. 347 ships would launch immediately. Their target was the Devourer swarm itself, not Council space. They would intercept the swarm at the edge of the outer rim, far from any populated systems. What about the Council coup? One general asked. The hardliners control significant military assets. They might try to stop us. Bora smiled coldly. Let them try. Our mission is clear. We stop the swarm. Everything else is secondary. Hyunwoo sat at the table listening to the military discussions. Finally, he spoke. We need to make something clear to the Council. We are not doing this for them. We are doing this because it is the right thing to do. We are doing this because the swarm will not stop with Council space. Eventually, it will reach Sol system. We fight now or we fight later. Fighting now is more efficient. He looked around the table. But we also need to show the Council what we are capable of. Not to threaten them. To teach them. They need to understand what real defense looks like. They need to learn from us. The fleet launched 3 days later. 347 warships left New Sol Station in perfect formation. Then they scattered, each ship heading to its designated position. The human fleet did not move like Council fleets. They spread out across vast distances, creating a web rather than a wall. The council watched through their sensors, not understanding the pattern. Mirai, studying the tactical displays, began to see it. The humans were not forming a defensive line. They were creating a trap. The Devourer swarm entered human weapons range 4 days later. The swarm was massive, billions of small creatures moving as one organism. Each creature was designed to consume matter and convert it to energy. Together they were unstoppable, or so the council thought. The human fleet opened fire. But their weapons were different from council weapons. Instead of energy beams, they fired specialized projectiles. Each projectile contained a virus, a digital weapon designed to corrupt the swarm's communication network. Engineer Sang Mi watched from New Seoul Station as her weapons performed exactly as designed. The virus spread through the swarm like wildfire. Individual creatures began to separate from the whole. The unified organism started to break apart. "It is working," she reported to Admiral Bora. "The swarm is losing cohesion." But the swarm adapted. Parts of it isolated the infected sections and continued forward. The human fleet adjusted tactics immediately. Ships that were holding back suddenly accelerated, hitting the swarm from unexpected angles. More virus weapons. More disruption. The battle lasted for 6 hours. Human ships took damage. Some ships were destroyed, their crews lost. But the swarm took worse damage. For the first time in recorded history, the Devourer swarm retreated. Across council space, people watched the battle recordings in shock. Humanity had done what seemed impossible. They had hurt the swarm. They had forced it to retreat. At Nexus Prime, the hardline counselors who staged the coup watched the same recordings. One by one, their certainty crumbled. They had refused to accept human terms because they thought humanity was bluffing. They thought no one could stop the swarm. They were wrong. Mirai seized the moment. She broadcast the battle footage across all council channels. She made a speech that was simple and direct. "Look at them," she said, her voice carrying to every council world. "They fight for us. After we expelled them, after we took their colonies, after we called them aggressive and dangerous, they fight, they die, they save us. And some of you still refuse to admit we were wrong." She paused, letting the images of burning human ships fill the screens. "This is what humanity does. This is who they are. They protect, even when the protected do not deserve it. Even when the cost is measured in lives." The coup collapsed within hours. Hardline counselors surrendered their positions. Military forces returned to council control. The rebellion ended not with violence but with shame. But in deep space, Captain Taesung made a discovery that changed everything. His reconnaissance ship had been tracking the swarm from a distance, hidden by advanced stealth systems. He detected something the council sensors missed: a probe, massive and ancient, made of materials that absorbed sensor scans. The probe was watching the battle, recording everything, analyzing human tactics. Taesung transmitted his findings to Earth immediately. The message was coded, encrypted with military protocols. But the meaning was clear. The Devourer swarm was not a natural phenomenon. Something was controlling it. Something was testing them. And that something was about to respond to humanity's interference. The probe hung in space like a dead star. Captain Taesung studied it through his ship's sensors, careful not to get too close. The object was enormous, larger than most space stations. Its surface absorbed all energy, making it nearly invisible against the darkness of space. But it was not dead. Energy signatures pulsed deep within its core. Something inside was active, thinking, watching. Taesung opened a secure channel to Earth. "Command, this is Reconnaissance 7. I have confirmed the probe's position and size. Recommend immediate analysis by Science Division." On Earth, Science Officer Dayun received the data. She had been studying ancient records about the Devourer swarm for months. Now, seeing the probe data, pieces began to fit together. The swarm was not random. It appeared in cycles roughly every 3,000 years. Each time it consumed young civilizations that reached a certain level of technology. But some civilizations survived. The records were vague about how. They mentioned trials, tests, judgments. Dayun called Hyunwoo to her lab. "Ambassador, I need you to see this." She showed him her analysis. The probe was ancient, built by a species called the Architects. According to archaeological records, the Architects were billions of years old. They achieved technology that seemed like magic. They could manipulate space and time. They could create life and destroy it with equal ease. and they were judging galactic civilizations. The Devourer swarm is a weapon, Daun explained, but not a weapon of conquest. It is a filter. The architects use it to test civilizations. Those that survive prove themselves worthy. Those that fail are eliminated. Worthy of what? Hyunwoo asked. That I do not know yet, but I believe we are about to find out. The human fleet regrouped after their first engagement with the swarm. Admiral Bora reviewed the damage reports. 62 ships destroyed, thousands of crew members dead, many more ships damaged and under repair. The victory came at a terrible cost, but they had proven something important. The swarm could be hurt. It could be stopped. The question now was whether humanity could sustain this kind of battle long enough to destroy the entire swarm. Bora opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Bora. You fought well today. You honored those who came before us. You showed the galaxy what humanity can do when pushed to the edge. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But the battle is not over. The swarm is damaged, not destroyed. It will adapt to our tactics. It will find weaknesses in our defenses. We must be ready to adapt faster. We must be willing to sacrifice more. Another pause. Some of you are wondering why we fight for the Council. After what they did to us. After the expulsion. After 3 years of silence. I will tell you why. We fight because it is who we are. We fight because leaving innocents to die is not acceptable. We fight because someone has to stand guard at the edge of darkness. That someone has always been us. Across the fleet, crews listened. Some cried. Others felt anger. But all of them understood. This was humanity's purpose. This was what they did. At Nexus Prime, the Council completed its apology broadcast. Every member who voted for the expulsion recorded a personal message. They admitted their mistake. They apologized to every human who suffered. They acknowledged that humanity protected them while they remained ignorant and ungrateful. Vexthar's message was the most difficult to record. He stood before the camera, scales dimmed with shame. I led the vote to expel humanity, he said. I believed we were protecting our civilization from a dangerous influence. I was wrong. Not just wrong in judgment, but wrong in understanding. Humanity was never the danger. They were the shield, and I threw away that shield because I did not like how it looked. He stopped, emotion breaking through his control. I cannot undo what I did. I can only acknowledge it and ask for forgiveness that I do not deserve. To every human watching this, I offer my deepest apology. You gave us peace. We gave you exile. You deserved better. You deserve better now. The broadcasts went out across all Council channels. Billions watched. Some humans accepted the apologies. Others remained bitter. But everyone heard the words. Everyone knew the Council admitted their failure. Then Captain Tae-sung made his move. His reconnaissance ship was still hidden near the Architect probe. He had been studying it for days, trying to understand its purpose. Finally, he made a decision that would either save civilization or doom it. He broadcast a message directly at the probe. Not in any human language, not in any Council language. He used pure mathematics, the universal language that any advanced civilization would understand. The message was simple. We are here. We see you. We challenge your judgment. For 3 hours, nothing happened. Then the probe powered up. Light erupted from its surface, not visible light, but something deeper. Energy that touched the mind rather than the eyes. Tae-sung felt it wash over his ship, analyzing everything. His technology. His biology, his thoughts. The probe sent a response, not in mathematics. In English acknowledged. That single word changed everything. The architects were not just watching. They were listening. They were responding. And they understood humanity well enough to answer in their language. Tae-sung transmitted urgently to Earth. They are responding. The architects are talking to us. Hyunwoo arrived at the communications center immediately. Taeyun was already there, recording every signal from the probe. What did you say to them? Hyunwoo asked Tae-sung over the channel. I challenged them. I told them we claimed worthiness. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. You did what? Someone had to, Tae-sung replied calmly. We were being tested. Pretending we did not know seemed counterproductive. More messages came from the probe. Long strings of data. Daeyeon worked to decode them. Slowly, a picture emerged. The architects were ancient beyond measure. They watched over young civilizations, eliminating those that grew strong without growing wise. The Devourer swarm was their tool. It tested military capacity. But military capacity alone was not enough to pass. The architects also watched how civilizations treated each other, whether they helped or abandoned, whether they showed mercy or only strength. Dayun read the decoded message aloud. Humanity has demonstrated capacity. 347 combat vessels, effective tactics, successful engagement with the Devourer swarm. But capacity alone is insufficient. The test continues. What are they testing for? Hyunwoo demanded. The next message answered his question. Civilizations that pass our trials demonstrate both strength and wisdom. Military power combined with moral judgment. The capacity to protect combined with the will to show mercy. Humanity defended those who wronged them. This demonstrates worthiness. Hyunwoo read the words 3 times. The architects were not testing whether humanity could fight. They were testing whether humanity would fight for the right reasons. Another message arrived. The Devourer swarm is recalled. Humanity has passed the trial. An invitation follows. Across space, the swarm stopped advancing. Billions of small creatures that made up the massive organism began to disperse. The threat was ending, not because humanity destroyed it, but because humanity proved they deserved to survive. Admiral Bora received the data on her flagship. She stared at the tactical display watching the swarm retreat. Around her crew members cheered. They had won, not through destruction but through judgment. But the cost remained. 62 ships lost, thousands dead, families broken, lives ended. The victory was real, but it was not free. Bora opened a channel to all ships. Prepare to return to New Seoul. We honor the fallen tomorrow. Today we survive. The fleet began its journey home. Behind them, the architect probe remained watching, recording, judging the aftermath just as it judged the battle. On Earth, Hyunwoo read the invitation from the architects. It was an offer to join something called the Collective, a group of civilizations that passed the trials, a group that protected younger species from external threats. Humanity would become the Council's official protector, formally, permanently, with the backing of beings that existed for billions of years. The question was whether humanity would accept and whether the price of protection was worth paying forever. 6 months passed. The galaxy changed in ways nobody predicted. The Council restructured itself completely. Vexthar stepped down as Chancellor, accepting responsibility for the expulsion. Mireille was elected to replace him with overwhelming support from all member species. Her first act was to formally restore all human territories. Her second act was to grant humanity equal representation on the Council. Her third act was to declare a day of remembrance for the humans who died defending those who expelled them. Monuments were built on every Council world. Simple stone markers, each one listing the names of the 62 ships lost in battle, the names of the thousands who died. The Council wanted to make sure nobody forgot the price humanity paid for their survival. On Earth, the debate raged about the architect invitation. The planet held a referendum. Every human citizen could vote on whether to accept membership in the Collective. The arguments were fierce. Many humans were bitter. They wanted the Council to stand alone. They wanted the Council to learn what abandonment felt like. Why should humanity forever guard those who rejected them? Others argued that this was what humanity always wanted. Recognition, respect, a formal purpose in the galaxy. The architects offered all of that. They offered partnership with ancient powers. They offered protection from threats humanity could not yet imagine. Prime Minister Jae-hyun addressed the planet from Seoul. This is not an easy choice, he said. We are being asked to take on a permanent burden, to become the guardians of this galaxy, to stand watch while others live in peace. Some say this is unfair. Some say we should refuse. He paused, looking directly at the camera. But I ask you this. When have humans ever chosen the easy path? When have we ever turned away from duty because it was hard? We are being offered the chance to build something better. Not just for us. For everyone. We can teach the Council to defend themselves. We can help them become partners instead of dependents. This is not about protecting the weak. This is about building strength together. The vote was close. 52% in favor, 48% against. Democracy won by the smallest margin. Humanity would accept the architect invitation. Captain Tae-sung was chosen to make first contact with the architects themselves. His reconnaissance ship traveled to coordinates provided by the probe. The journey took 3 weeks, heading into a region of space that no human had ever explored. When he arrived, Taesung found something that defied description. The architect's station existed in multiple dimensions at once. It was both solid and ethereal, large and small, present and absent. His sensors could not properly register what he was seeing. A being appeared on his ship. Not through the airlock, not through any door. It simply existed where it had not existed before. The being was vaguely humanoid but made of light and mathematics. When it spoke, Taesung heard the words in his mind rather than his ears. "Welcome, humanity. You have passed our trial. You demonstrated strength tempered with wisdom. You showed mercy to those who wronged you. This is rare among young civilizations." Taesung found his voice. "What happens now? Now you join the collective. You become guardians of your region. You protect younger species from threats they cannot yet handle. We will provide knowledge, technology, guidance. But the responsibility is yours." "And the council?" Taesung asked. "What about them?" The being seemed to smile, though it had no face. "The council failed our test. They showed weakness. They allowed fear to overcome judgment. But you have chosen to protect them anyway. This also demonstrates worthiness. You may guide them, teach them, help them become what they should be." "For how long?" Taesung asked. "How long do we guard them?" "Until they can guard themselves, or until you decide they are not worth saving. The choice is yours. We only ask that you maintain balance, strength without cruelty, protection without creating dependence, wisdom in all things." The being vanished as suddenly as it appeared. Taesung sat alone in his ship, processing what he had learned. Humanity was being given enormous power, but also enormous responsibility. The balance between those two things would define what humanity became. He returned to Earth and delivered his report. Hyunwoo listened carefully. Then he prepared for his final task as Earth's ambassador. Nexus Prime hosted a formal ceremony. Every council member attended. Human representatives arrived, including Admiral Bora, still wearing the uniform stained by months of battle. The chamber was packed. Billions watched across the galaxy. Hyunwoo and Mirei stood together at the center of the chamber. They would sign the Creation Accord, the treaty that would define the next century of galactic civilization. The terms were clear. Humanity would maintain an independent defense network. They would patrol the edges of known space. They would respond to external threats. But the Council would also begin building their own defenses. Human military advisors would train Council forces. Human engineers would share defensive technology. The goal was not permanent dependence. The goal was partnership, a 100-year plan. That was the timeline. 100 years for the Council to learn how to defend themselves. 100 years for humanity to teach rather than simply protect. At the end of that time, the galaxy would be different, stronger, more unified. Mirei spoke first. "We acknowledge our failure. We acknowledge that humanity protected us while we remained ignorant. We acknowledge that we punished you for the very actions that kept us safe. We cannot undo the past, but we commit to building a better future." Hyunwoo responded. "Humanity accepts this commitment. We will stand guard, but we will not stand alone. We will teach you to stand with us. We will share our burden until it becomes our shared responsibility. This is not charity. This is partnership." They signed the document together. The chamber erupted in applause, not the polite applause of diplomacy, but genuine emotion, relief, hope, gratitude. Vexthar watched from the gallery. He no longer held power, but Mirei insisted he attend. He needed to see what his mistake had created, not just disaster, but also redemption. The galaxy nearly fell because of his pride. Now it was being rebuilt because of humanity's mercy. He whispered to himself words only he could hear. "We were wrong, but they taught us how to be right." The ceremony ended. Delegates departed. But the real work was just beginning. Human advisors spread across council space. Training programs started. Defensive installations were designed. Technology was shared. Knowledge flowed in both directions. The council learned that defense required constant vigilance. That peace was maintained through strength. That cooperation was built on mutual respect, not hierarchy. Humanity learned that teaching was harder than protecting, that patience was more difficult than combat, that building partnerships required more courage than winning battles. Years passed. The first council-built defense station activated, designed entirely by non-human engineers with human advisors providing guidance. The station was not as advanced as human designs. But it worked, and it was theirs. Admiral Bora attended the activation ceremony. She stood with the council engineers, proud of their achievement. When the station powered up successfully, she felt something she had not expected: relief. The burden was beginning to shift. Humanity was still standing guard, but now others were learning to stand with them. 20 years after the signing of the Creation Accord, a new threat emerged from deep space. Not as dangerous as the Devourer swarm, but still significant. Automated warships from a dead civilization, still following ancient attack protocols. The Council detected the threat first. Their new sensor network, built with human assistance, gave early warning. Council fleets deployed to intercept. Human ships stood ready to assist if needed. They were not needed. The Council forces engaged the automated warships and destroyed them. The battle was not perfect. Mistakes were made. Ships were damaged. But the Council won, without human intervention, without rescue. Yunwu watched the battle recordings with Da-un. They sat in silence for a long time after the footage ended. Finally, Da-un spoke. "They are learning." "Yes," Yunwu agreed. "They are." At the edge of known space, a remote monitoring station tracked movements in the darkness. One human officer and one council officer worked together, watching screens that showed nothing but stars. The council officer spoke. "Do you think others will understand what we are building here?" The human officer considered the question. "Eventually, if we teach them well. And if we do not teach them well?" the council officer asked. The human smiled slightly. "Then we keep trying. That is what guardians do. We do not give up. We do not abandon our duty. We stand watch, together." They returned to their screens, silent, vigilant, partners. The galaxy was still dangerous. Threats still lurked in the darkness between stars. But now, for the first time, multiple species stood guard together, learning from each other, growing stronger through cooperation rather than isolation. The architects watched from their ancient station. They observed the progress. They noted the changes. Another civilization passed their trial. Another species proved worthy. The cycle continued, but this time was different. This time, the species that passed the trial chose to lift others up rather than abandon them, chose to teach rather than dominate, chose partnership over superiority. The architects found this development interesting. In billions of years,